listeners, welcome back to another Whispered Facts episode, this time covering the topic of sleep. Now, sleep is a fascinating topic. It's something that has been widely researched and documented over the years. I actually recall seeing a documentary on it some time ago and being truly engrossed in it. So it's going to be really interesting today to learn a little bit more on the topic of sleep, which will hopefully relax us in the process. So without further ado, it is time to lay back, relax, and let yourself drift away as I whisper facts about sleep. Sleep is a naturally recurring state of mind and body, characterized by altered consciousness, relatively inhibited sensory activity, reduced muscle activity, and inhibition of nearly all voluntary muscles during rapid eye movement, also known as REM sleep, and reduced interactions with surroundings. It is distinguished from wakefulness by a decreased ability to react to stimuli, but more reactive than a coma, or disorders of consciousness, with sleep displaying different active brain patterns. Sleep is a fascinating and intricate process that continues to be studied today. So I think that's a pretty good sort of introduction to what sleep is and what happens while we sleep. I think this is going to be a really interesting topic to cover today because we all sleep. It's something every one of us does. So we can all relate to certain facts in this episode, and I'm sure I'll share some of my own experiences when it comes to sleep as well as we progress through the video. Sleep is divided into two broad types: non-REM and REM sleep. Non-REM and REM sleep are so different that physiologists identify them as distinct behavioral states. Non-REM sleep occurs first, and after a transitional period is called slow wave sleep or deep sleep. During this phase, body temperature and heart rate fall, and the brain uses less energy. REM sleep, also known as paradoxical sleep, represents a smaller portion of total sleep time and is the main occasion for dreams or nightmares. The discovery of REM sleep in the 1950s sparked an interest in why we sleep and what exactly goes on in the brain while we are sleeping, but scientists don't know why we sleep. From an evolutionary standpoint, sleeping doesn't make too much sense. Staying immobile and unresponsive leaves sleepers vulnerable to predators and takes away time from eating and mating. Yeah, in one sense it does seem strange from an evolutionary standpoint, as the fact mentioned, the fact that we are vulnerable when we sleep, but at the same time we need to rest. Our bodies need to recharge. I sometimes wonder what life would be like if we didn't have to sleep. Imagine if there were no beds and you always felt fully awake 24 hours a day. How much more we could do in life and fit into the short time we have. It's quite a fun thought, but at the same time, sleeping is good. We like to sleep, we're comfortable, sleeper or not, of course. I personally have a pretty regular sleep pattern. I love getting into bed at night, I have to admit, like a lot of people. Although there are vast differences among sleep times for different animals, virtually all animals sleep. Theories on the reasons for sleep include energy, conservation, keeping safe at night, cellular maintenance, waste removal, and learning and memory formation. Okay, so this next fact contains some sleep disorders. I'll do my absolute best to pronounce them properly, but I can't guarantee I will. But I'll give it my best shot. So, our first sleep disorder is insomnia, hypersomnia, narcolepsy, and sleep apnea. Parasomnias, such as sleepwalking, rapid eye movement, sleep behavior disorder, bruxism, and circadian rhythm sleep disorders. Okay, so I think insomnia is the one most of us know and think about when we think of a sleep disorder. I also know what sleep apnea is, as I have a relative who has that. Sleepwalking is also very well known. I actually had a funny experience as a child that's just come to mind as I'm reading these. So I don't think it was sleepwalking as such, but it was maybe in a related area. But what happened was, I somehow ended up on the floor one night when I was in bed without waking up, and then I somehow ended up under the bed, and I'm about 8 years old at this time, and I feel around myself and above myself, and all I can feel is wood, which turned out to be the bed slats, and I start screaming. Can you imagine how terrifying that would be, even for an adult? I thought I was in a coffin or something, and I screamed my head off. And then I saw light, so that was my mum who had came to see what was going on, and she put the light on. And once she put the light on, I knew exactly where I was, and it was really the most terrifying sleep experience I've ever had. So yeah, that just came to mind there as we were reading through various sleep disorders. Awakening can mean the end of sleep, or simply a moment to survey the environment and readjust body position before falling back asleep. Sleepers typically awaken soon after the end of a REM phase, or sometimes in the middle of REM. If it takes you less than 5 minutes to fall asleep at night, you're probably sleep deprived. Ideally, falling asleep should take 10 to 15 minutes. Yeah, I think personally it does take about 10 to 15 minutes for myself to fall asleep. I consider myself to be something of a wriggler. I move around a lot for a good few minutes until I settle. So I guess it's a routine, but I start out on my front facing the left, and then I'll turn my head to face the right. Then from there I usually move back to the left, then move onto my side, and then usually back to my front. And I know it sounds funny, but I do this every night. It's just sort of like a routine I go through. It's probably a bit strange. I'm not sure if other people have certain sort of routines. If you do, you know, it would make me feel better if you let me know in the comments, and I wouldn't feel so strange then. But I'm pretty pretty sure I do that every night when I get into bed, or something very similar to it. It's just one of those odd little routines when it comes to getting comfortable in bed, I guess. Roughly half of children between 3 and 6 years old experience nightmares. Research shows that in the days leading up to a full moon, people go to bed later and sleep less, although the reasons are unclear. Driving while sleep deprived is like driving drunk. Sleep deprivation affects response times, accuracy, and other cognitive abilities on a level comparable with being intoxicated. Going 17 to 19 hours without sleep slows reaction times as much as having a blood alcohol level of 0.05 or above. Sea otters hold hands when they sleep so they don't drift away from each other. I think that's quite a sweet fact there. And I'm sure other species of animals have their own kind of sleep routines and things of that nature. But yeah, that's quite a sweet fact there. Tiredness peaks twice a day, around 2 a.m. and 2 p.m. for most people. That's why you're less alert after lunch. Yeah, I've heard this fact before. It's to do with the body clock, I think, and it actually rings true. I've noticed myself feeling more drowsy at those times before. Stress, physical or mental illness, living or sleeping arrangements, family history, shift work, diet, and exercise habits can all contribute to insomnia. Across a large population of sleepers, 54.1% of total time in bed was spent sleeping on their side, 37.5% sleeping on their back, and 7.3% sleeping on their stomach. Yeah, and this one comes back to my own routine when it comes to getting comfortable in bed before falling asleep. I think they also call it kneading the bed before you settle. I think I've heard that term before. You might also notice a pet, maybe a dog, doing this at some point, as I have before. And that is when you might see them walking in a circle on their pillow before they finally lay down to rest. But those figures are quite surprising. I think I primarily sleep on my front, so I'm in the 7.3% bracket. So that's really quite fascinating. And we have 54.1% on their side, 37.5% on their back. I would have expected those figures to be more even, or in fact more in favor of people sleeping on their stomach. But yeah, it's quite interesting to learn those different figures. English bulldogs are the only canines known to experience sleep apnea, a breathing disorder. Their unusual airway anatomy, with short snouts and underbites, is likely the reason. Finding it hard to get out of bed in the morning is a real condition called dysthenia. It may signal a nutritional deficiency, depression, or other problems. On the first night of sleeping in a new place, one hemisphere of our brain remains more active than the other during sleep. Scientists believe this vigilant mode allows us to respond more quickly to unfamiliar, potentially danger signaling sounds. Insomnia is not defined by the sleep you lose each night, but by the drowsiness, difficulty concentrating, headaches, irritability, and other problems it can cause each day. I feel so bad for people who have insomnia. I've known a few people in my time, and it's really not a pleasant thing to have at all. I really wouldn't wish it on anyone, not even my worst enemy. You're less likely to have a traffic accident when daylight savings time ends. Statistics show that the extra hour of sleep reduces accidents. Humans are the only mammals on the planet that willingly delay their sleep. In the 17th century, getting up in the middle of the night was normal. People slept in 2 segments divided by an hour or 2 of alertness. Time for reading, praying, intimacy, or socializing with others. The average amount of time people sleep has dropped from 9 hours in the pre-light bulb era to 7.5 hours today. I think 7 hours is about the average amount I sleep per night, certainly the amount I aim to sleep each night. 7 hours is my sort of threshold, I guess you could say. It's the amount I need to feel good the next day. Any less and I start to feel a little groggy. How bad really depends on how much under the 7 hours I had the night before. At 6 hours, I'll definitely feel sluggish the next day, so really 7 hours is the amount I aim to get each night. Going without sleep is likely to make you hungry as levels of leptin, an appetite regulating hormone, fall. A 19th century Chinese merchant was sentenced to death for murdering his wife. Sleep deprivation was deliberately chosen as the method of execution on the grounds that it would cause the maximum amount of suffering and would serve as the greatest deterrent to other potential murderers. He eventually died on the 19th day, having suffered terribly. Oh my goodness, that sounds absolutely brutal. I wonder how they kept him awake exactly. Maybe they had people take shifts making a lot of noise and maybe prodding him or something along those lines, but that would be a horrendous way to die, not being allowed to sleep until your body literally shuts down. That's a pretty eye-watering fact. One job in early English mill and factory towns was to knock on people's windows to wake them up for work. Insomnia is often a normal part of grieving. Taking sleeping pills can disrupt this natural process. Babies sleep more than the rest of us. A study found out that the brain's parents of babies utilize up to 50% of the glucose in their bodies, which is why they need more sleep. Yeah, babies do need a lot of sleep. It's the point of their lives, I think, when a lot is happening. If you think of the body as a machine, it needs to sleep in order to carry out certain functions. Koalas are the longest sleeping mammals, sleeping up to 22 hours a day. Wow, that's a fact I never knew about koalas. 22 hours a day, so they're only actually awake for around 2 hours each day. That's an amazing fact if you think about it. Regular exercise usually improves your sleep patterns. Strenuous exercise right before bed may keep you awake. It is not uncommon for deaf people to use sign language in their sleep. There are many instances where people have reported their deaf partners or children using sign language in their sleep. Sleeping on the job is less of a problem in Japan. Companies may accept it as a sign of exhaustion from overwork. Today, 75% of us dream in color. Before color television, just 15% of us did. Dreaming is a whole other topic for another day, but I dream a lot, most nights in fact. Sometimes they're good, and sometimes they're not so good, but I think they are all in color. That much I do know, but yeah, dreaming will certainly be a future topic for discussion on the channel. Another really fascinating topic related to sleep. Whales and dolphins literally fall half asleep. Each side of their brain takes turns so they can come up for air. A snoring partner wakes their non-snoring partner on average of 20 times per night, with an average sleep loss of 1 hour a day. Our internal body clock is designed to be the way it is, and no matter how much we try, we cannot alter it dramatically. So, if you are a night owl, you will probably stay that way for the rest of your life. This happens because of a protein that lives in our cells and prevents us from altering our body clocks dramatically. The record for the longest time without sleep is 11 days. This was set by a Californian student named Randy Gardner in 1964. Randy experienced extreme sleep deprivation over the course of his record-breaking effort to include moodiness, confusion, and hallucinations. I remember reading about this a while ago. 11 days without sleep is astonishing. It actually reminds me of a reality show you might remember back in 2004, which was called Shattered. If you're from the UK, that is. It aired on Channel 4, I believe, and it was set in a house a little bit like Big Brother. But basically, it was all to do with sleep deprivation. They started off with 10 people. I think each night one would get eliminated. They would get monitored throughout the process. They would have to do daily tasks. I think something like that for safety reasons. It was pretty cool, and I remember people on that show experiencing confusion, hallucinations, etc. as mentioned in this fact. I rewatched it quite recently on YouTube, actually. The whole series is uploaded there, and it was a one-off series, but it's well worth checking out. It's called Shattered, and it's from 2004. Lighting up a bright light right behind the knees can actually reset the sleep-wake clock of a person's brain. This was shown in an experiment conducted in 1998. One of our biggest sleep distractions is 24-hour internet access. This fact certainly rings true. There's been nights that I've turned the lights off and attempted to go to sleep, but my mind just won't switch off, and I end up looking up YouTube or Facebook or some of those platforms anyway. And I think we've all had those nights before when we go to bed but our brains just won't comply, and we end up tossing and turning for what seems an eternity until we finally fall asleep. Parasomnia is a term that refers to unnatural movements during your sleep. Some people have even committed crime due to parasomnia, including sleep driving and even murder. Blind people have more trouble with sleep than those who can see. This is because blind people are unable to make out the difference between daylight and night. Daylight is very important for maintaining circadian rhythm. Nearly half of all blind people suffer from this disorder, which is known as non-24-hour sleep-wake disorder. In a study, it was found that people sleep well during a new moon and sleep poorly during a full moon. 2/3 of a cat's life is spent asleep, which will come as no surprise to most cat owners. Cats are huge lovers of heat and will sleep on anything they find comfortable and warm. As someone who has lived with a cat at some point for most of my life, I can vouch for this one, particularly my childhood cat who was called Kitty. Well, she was more of my sister's cat, but anyway, she used to sleep in some funny places, like on the cabinets directly above the oven, which must have been heated up when the oven was in use, or just after it was used. There was also times when she slept on the open oven door as it cooled down, as well as on top of the old Atari computer console we used to have, which used to get pretty warm when it was in use. They really will sleep anywhere they find a heat source, I think. Another place was the inside of the tumble dryer. So there's one time I recall when my granny threw something into it and closed the door and started a cycle, and you just heard the cat squealing in a panic inside. I can still hear that squeal today, and we quickly opened the door and she shot out at such a speed. She was hamster on a wheel essentially for a brief few moments. On an average, a healthy human adult requires 7 to 9 hours of good sleep to perform optimally. Some can actually perform optimally with just 6 hours of sleep. On the other hand, some people will require at least still seems to be around 7 hours, so it's quite consistent, and I think nurses working 12.5-hour shifts report committing more than 3 times as many medical errors than those working 8.5-hour shifts. Many people find it difficult to wake up on Monday mornings. This is caused by what is known as social jet lag, caused by altered sleeping schedules during the weekends. Upon 5 minutes of waking, 50% of a dream is forgotten. Within 10 minutes, 90% of it is forgotten. Yeah, it's a shame that this happens. It would be cool if we could hold on to our dreams for longer, but some of mine have actually stuck with me for months or even years after, so I'm not exactly sure how that works, because some dreams do almost completely disappear soon after waking up, but others seem to stick. Only a close medical supervision can tell whether a person is really sleeping or not, because some people can sleep with their eyes open without even realizing that they are doing so. People with severe insomnia are 7 times more likely to have work-related accidents than good sleepers. Scientists believe that around 15% of people are sleepwalkers. Around 8% of people have an episode of sleep paralysis during the course of their life. I have a friend who actually has sleep paralysis, and she occasionally has an episode, and it just sounds terrifying. I don't know too much about it, but I gather that sometimes when you wake up, you're in a state of temporary paralysis. So basically, you're awake, but you can't move, and you've no idea how long it will last. Sometimes it may be seconds, sometimes minutes or longer, but yeah, it does sound like something pretty horrific to have, and it would be very scary when you experience an episode. In a sleep-deprived state, you can go on functioning normally for some time, but once you lose your focus, you will find it difficult to get back on track. Nightmares while sleeping can be caused by beta blockers, migraines, sleep deprivation, and even heart conditions. British soldiers were the first to use special goggles that simulated the brightness of a sunrise. The goggles helped the soldiers stay awake 36 hours without sleep. A study showed that in adolescence, both daytime functioning and sleep improve if the school starts at later hours. This is because adolescents are late risers, but unfortunately, most of the schools have early morning hours, which is why many adolescents feel sleepy and tired at school. There are many Tibetan monks who are known for sleeping upright. It's quite an interesting fact there. I'm not exactly sure how a person sleeps upright. I can't imagine it would be a lot of fun. I actually to sleep, but I just can't sleep on a plane. Sitting up in a seat, it just does not feel good. I'm one of these people who really needs to lay back to feel comfortable. So yeah, it's quite a fact there that some of these Tibetan monks are known for actually sleeping upright. I can't imagine that would be a lot of fun at all. Active duty service members are 34% more likely to report insufficient sleep than people with no history of military service. Although most sleep studies focus on the importance of getting enough sleep, regularly sleeping for more than 11 hours a night has also been linked to health and performance problems, including a higher risk of cardiovascular disease. And finally, parents of newborns lose 6 months of sleep in the first 2 years of the lives of their children. I don't envy any parents of newborns, to be honest. I don't actually have any kids of my own. Maybe one day, who knows, but yeah, it's no doubt tough during those very early days. It obviously helps if there's 2 of you and you live together, so you can sort of take it in turns, but it would be extremely tough on a single parent who has to do it all. Well guys, that is just about it for this Whispered Facts episode on sleep. I hope you found the video informative as well as relaxing. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button before you go. Consider subscribing to the channel if you're new around here, and if you do subscribe, be sure to hit the notification bell and you'll get notified when my latest videos go live on the channel. But thank you for joining me. As always, rest easy, sleep well. I hope to see you again very soon for another video. Goodbye for now.